In the years leading up to the dawn of the 12th century, Japan found itself at a crossroads. The Heian period, known for its cultural flourishing and refined courtly life, was also a time of growing political instability. The great noble families of Japan, Fujiwara, Taira, and Minamoto, each vied for control of the imperial court, a power structure that had long been dominated by the Fujiwara clan. Yet, in the midst of this intricate web of political alliances, there was one man who would rise to challenge the established order: Taira no Kiyomori. Kiyomori's story began not with the privilege of a noble birth, but with the grit and determination of a man who would do whatever it took to change his fate. Born in 1118, Kiyomori was the son of Taira no Tadamori, a relatively unknown military officer in the Taira clan. The Taira were not the powerful, court-dominating family they would later become, but rather a clan caught between military duty and court politics. Tadamori himself was a loyal servant of the imperial family, but his position did not offer the kind of influence or wealth that Kiyomori would one day wield. From a young age, Kiyomori's natural leadership abilities and military prowess set him apart. While the Fujiwara clan controlled the highest offices in the court and the Minamoto family built their strength in the countryside, Kiyomori's focus was always on rising through military and strategic means. Early on, he demonstrated an extraordinary ability to navigate the often treacherous waters of Japanese politics. While his contemporaries played the long game in the courtly world, Kiyomori's strategy was always direct and forceful. He did not have the luxury of waiting for opportunity to knock, he created his own opportunities. One battle at a time. But it wasn't just his martial skills that set him apart. Kiyomori had an uncanny understanding of how to manipulate the imperial court. He knew that military victories alone would not secure power, he needed alliances. He needed family connections. And above all, he needed to position himself as an indispensable figure in the court. This understanding would serve him well as he began to take his first steps toward greatness. The court politics of the Heian period were a world of elaborate rituals, delicate favors, and carefully constructed marriages. It was a game of alliances, where one's position was only as strong as the connections one could make. In this world, the Fujiwara clan held the reins of power, often securing their place at the top by marrying their daughters to emperors. For Kiyomori, this was both a challenge and an opportunity. Through a series of carefully orchestrated moves, Kiyomori began to build his network. His growing influence caught the attention of the Fujiwara family, who, despite their dominance, could not ignore the military might of the Taira clan. Kiyomori's growing ambition found its first major test when he decided to marry Taira no Tokuko, the daughter of Fujiwara no Tadamichi, a member of the powerful Fujiwara clan. This union was not one of love, but one of strategy. By aligning himself with the Fujiwara, Kiyomori would gain the legitimacy needed to challenge the power structures in place and place his family at the very heart of the imperial court. For Taira no Tokuko, the young woman who would become Empress Kenrei, this marriage was more than a political arrangement. Born into the Fujiwara clan, she had grown up in the palace, surrounded by the intricate dance of court politics. She was no stranger to the game of power. But the marriage to Kiyomori was a departure from the life she might have expected. She had been raised to be part of the Fujiwara family's political machine. And marrying a man from the Taira family, a clan that had long been seen as lesser than the Fujiwara, was a bold step. But Tokuko was not without her own ambitions. She understood the weight her marriage would carry and the role she would play in her family's future. The union between Kiyomori and Tokuko was an important step in the rise of the Taira clan. While Kiyomori's power grew through military victories and cunning political maneuvering, Tokuko's influence in the court was just as crucial. With her position as Kiyomori's wife, she had access to the emperor and the imperial court. Her role in court ceremonies, her presence in the imperial household, and her strategic ties to the Fujiwara family placed her in a unique position to sway the tides of power. Through her, the Taira gained a foothold in the imperial family. But their marriage was not just a political transaction. It was the beginning of a partnership that would shape the future of Japan. Tokuko's quiet strength and intelligence complemented Kiyomori's forceful personality. While he made his mark through military victories, It was often Tokuko who managed the subtler aspects of court life. Her presence behind the scenes ensured that Kiyomori's rise was not just based on military might but on a solid foundation of courtly alliances and familial support. By the time Kiyomori's rise to power began in earnest, the Taira clan had secured key positions within the imperial court. Kiyomori's ascent was marked by a series of military victories and strategic political maneuvers that left rivals such as the Minamoto clan scrambling to keep up. His role as a military leader had earned him the loyalty of soldiers, while his marriage to Tokuko had secured him an invaluable connection to the imperial family. He understood that to truly claim power, he would need to break the hold the Fujiwara clan had on the emperor. Kiyomori's efforts culminated in the Hagen Rebellion of 1156, a pivotal moment in his rise. The rebellion was the first significant challenge to the dominance of the Fujiwara clan, and Kiyomori's role in the conflict proved to be a game-changer. With the support of the emperor and the imperial court, Kiyomori emerged victorious, and the rebellion solidified his power. As the head of the victorious faction, Kiyomori's power was now undeniable. But his success was not just due to his military prowess, it was also due to the political groundwork laid by Tokuko. Throughout the rebellion, Tokuko's influence remained crucial. Behind the scenes, she worked to ensure that the Taira had the necessary imperial favor to secure victory. She understood the delicate balance of power at court, and she used her position to position Kiyomori as an indispensable figure. When the dust settled after the rebellion, Kiyomori found himself not only a military leader but a figure of immense political power. In the years that followed, Kiyomori's power continued to grow. By the 1160s, he had risen to the highest office in the land, Daijo Daijin, or Prime Minister. His victory in the Heiji Rebellion of 1160 further solidified his position as the most powerful man in Japan. But this was just the beginning. With the Taira now firmly in control of the imperial court, Kiyomori began to reshape Japan's political landscape. Yet, throughout it all, Tokuko remained a silent force. Her influence ever present, Kiyomori's rise to power was a masterclass in ambition, strategy, and political maneuvering, but it was his partnership with Empress Kenrei, Taira no Tokuko, that proved to be the secret to his success. Together, they forged a path that would forever change the course of Japanese history. Their story was not just one of power, but one of political acumen, family loyalty, and the delicate balance between military might and courtly intrigue. As the 12th century wore on, Japan's courtly life remained deeply entangled with the ambitions of the nation's most powerful families. The Fujiwara clan, having enjoyed centuries of dominance, seemed as though their hold on the imperial family and its inner workings would never loosen. However, their control had begun to fade, and the Taira clan, under the cunning leadership of Taira no Kiyomori, was poised to claim that power for itself. Kiyomori's military victories and strategic maneuvering had paved the way for his rise. But it was in the realm of court politics where he truly cemented his legacy. The court itself was an intricate and delicate place. Its power was not simply held by the emperor, but also by those who controlled his ear, who swayed his decisions, and who were able to influence the course of history from behind closed doors. It was within this courtly labyrinth that Kiyomori, with the help of his wife, Empress Kenrei, began to shape a future that would forever change the balance of power in Japan. One of Kiyomori's greatest strengths was his understanding of the importance of appearances in the court. Though he had secured military victories, he knew that the true seat of power lay in control of the emperor and the imperial family. In the world of court politics, a great warrior was only as powerful as the emperor's trust in him. Thus, while Kiyomori continued to make his mark through battlefield success, it was his increasing influence at court that would ensure his ultimate control. In the years following his victory in the Hagen Rebellion, Kiyomori began consolidating his power, carefully positioning his family members in key positions of influence. His efforts were not subtle. His boldness was matched only by the growing number of enemies who began to view him as a threat to their own power. However, this didn't deter Kiyomori. He knew that in the game of power, only the bold survived. One of the key moments in Kiyomori's rise came when he managed to arrange for his son, Taira no Shigemori, to become the head of the Taira clan, securing the family's power for future generations. Through this act, Kiyomori ensured that the Taira would have both the military muscle and the courtly legitimacy necessary to dominate Japanese politics for years to come. But while Kiyomori made moves on the battlefield and within the court, his wife, Empress Kenrei, continued to play a vital role in the family's political rise. Tokuko's position as the mother of the imperial heir, Emperor Antoku, gave the Taira clan unparalleled access to the inner workings of the imperial household. She was not just Kiyomori's wife but an indispensable ally in the court's intricate web of politics. Through Tokuko, Kiyomori was able to build critical alliances with key figures in the imperial court. Her familial ties to the Fujiwara clan, who had once dominated the political scene, allowed Kiyomori to maintain a delicate balance between his growing power and the old guard. While Kiyomori expanded his control in the military sphere, Tokuko worked tirelessly behind the scenes, solidifying their position at the heart of the emperor's household. The court saw her as a figure of elegance and grace, but in reality, she wielded significant influence, acting as the quiet force that kept the Taira in favor with the emperor. The Taira clan's position in the court was becoming increasingly unshakable. In the 1160s, Kiyomori made his move for the highest office in Japan, Daijo Daijin, Prime Minister. By securing this position, Kiyomori effectively became the most powerful man in Japan, the one who controlled the emperor and directed the course of the nation's policies. His ability to maintain this position, despite the many political factions that sought to challenge him, was a testament to his ruthlessness and his ability to read the court's ever-changing landscape. Yet, as powerful as Kiyomori was, he could not have reached these heights alone. Behind him stood Empress Kenrei, whose political savvy, maternal devotion, and ability to navigate court politics made her an essential figure in the rise of the Taira. Her relationship with the emperor and her ability to influence him on Kiyomori's behalf gave the Taira clan unparalleled leverage. Together, Kiyomori and Tokuko formed an alliance that could not be broken, a union of military might and political maneuvering. While the Taira consolidated power in the imperial court, tensions were beginning to rise elsewhere. The Minamoto clan, long a rival of the Taira, was growing in strength, especially under the leadership of Minamoto no Yoshitomo. The Minamoto, though once divided, were beginning to recognize that the Taira's dominance in the court and military affairs could no longer be tolerated. The rivalry between these two families, already decades old, would soon reach its breaking point. The year 1160 saw the eruption of the Heiji Rebellion, another pivotal moment in Kiyomori's consolidation of power. The rebellion was a struggle between the Taira and the Minamoto, and while it would be marked by bloodshed, it also marked the beginning of the Taira's overwhelming dominance. Kiyomori's ability to emerge victorious in this conflict would not only secure his power but would also send a clear message to any who dared challenge the Taira. The clan had arrived, and it would not be easily dethroned. During the Heiji Rebellion, Tokuko's role was again crucial. Her position as empress allowed her to maneuver within the highest echelons of court politics, securing critical support for Kiyomori's faction. While Kiyomori led the military campaign, Tokuko ensured that the Taira's position within the court remained unchallenged. Her political acumen, combined with Kiyomori's military prowess, resulted in a swift victory for the Taira, but it also laid the groundwork for future conflicts. By the time Kiyomori had secured the title of Daijo Daijin, his position seemed unassailable. However, the seeds of dissent had been planted. The Minamoto, though defeated in the Heiji Rebellion, would not rest until they had overthrown the Taira. But for the time being, the Taira clan ruled supreme, and Empress Kenrei stood as a pillar of strength and wisdom at the heart of the court. Kiyomori's power had reached its zenith, but as the story of the Taira clan would soon show, even the most powerful of empires could crumble under the weight of their own ambition. Yet, for now, the Taira held sway over the court and the nation, thanks to the unwavering partnership between Taira no Kiyomori and his wife, Empress Kenrei. Their success, built on the foundations of military might, strategic alliances, and courtly influence, would lay the groundwork for one of the most dramatic conflicts in Japanese history, the Genpei War. The Heian period, once a time of cultural refinement and philosophical discourse, had long since begun to unravel into a battleground of political and military maneuvering. The Taira clan, having risen to the pinnacle of power under the leadership of Taira no Kiyomori, now stood at the helm of the imperial court, its dominance unchallenged, at least for the moment. But the Taira's grip on power was fragile, for with such power came numerous enemies, and it was only a matter of time before these enemies would make their move. One of the most significant flashpoints in the Taira's rise came in the year 1156. With the eruption of the Hagen Rebellion, a conflict that would fundamentally change the political landscape of Japan. This rebellion was not a war between two external forces, but rather a civil conflict within the imperial family itself. It involved a faction of the Minamoto clan, the traditional rivals of the Taira, and the entrenched factions of the court, all of whom were vying for control over the emperor and his successors. At the heart of this turmoil was the Emperor Go Shirakawa, who had been drawn into a bitter conflict between two factions of his court, one led by his brother, Prince Mochihito, and the other by the powerful Fujiwara clan. The Minamoto clan, long held in check by the Fujiwara, now found itself allied with Prince Mochihito in the hopes of removing the Taira from power. The Minamoto saw this rebellion as an opportunity to oust the Taira and reclaim their rightful place at the heart of Japan's political structure. Kiyomori, however, was not easily deterred by such threats. He had long prepared for a moment like this. As the rebellion intensified, Kiyomori's military forces clashed head-on with those of the Minamoto. While the Minamoto were formidable on the battlefield, it was the Taira's superior tactics, logistical planning, and the loyalty of their soldiers that gave them the upper hand. Kiyomori's military prowess was undeniable. His forces decisively defeated the Minamoto-led rebels in the Hagen Rebellion, securing the Taira clan's dominance over the emperor and the court for the time being. But it was not only Kiyomori's military skill that had secured this victory, it was also the influence of his wife, Empress Kenrei, who played a crucial role in the events that unfolded during the rebellion. Tokuko's role in the imperial household, as both the emperor's mother and Kiyomori's wife, allowed her to act as an unseen but influential force behind the scenes. She used her position to sway the loyalty of key court figures, ensuring that Kiyomori's faction was supported at the highest levels of the imperial family. Though she did not take part in the fighting on the front lines, Empress Kenrei's political acumen was critical in ensuring the Taira clan's victory. She worked tirelessly to ensure that the emperor, Go Shirakawa, remained firmly aligned with Kiyomori and his faction. Behind the scenes, she helped orchestrate the delicate negotiations that secured the loyalty of the court's most influential figures. Tokuko was able to persuade and manipulate as much as her husband could through force and persuasion. This unity of military might and courtly finesse was the foundation upon which the Taira's power rested. With the Hagen Rebellion behind them, Kiyomori emerged as the de facto ruler of Japan. His victory in the rebellion gave him the legitimacy he needed to take his place as one of the most powerful men in Japan. He quickly secured high-ranking positions for his family members, and his hold over the imperial court grew even more unshakable. But despite the victory, tensions within the Taira clan and the court continued to simmer. The Minamoto clan, though defeated, had not been entirely vanquished, and their leaders would soon regroup, seeking revenge. It was during this period that the Taira family began to show the full extent of their military dominance. Kiyomori was appointed to the position of Daijo Daijin, the highest office in the imperial government. This position effectively made him the most powerful man in the nation, second only to the emperor. But Kiyomori was not content to rest on his laurels. He knew that in order to maintain his newfound power, he would need to ensure that the Taira clan remained dominant, both militarily and politically. It was here that Kiyomori's leadership skills would truly be tested. As the head of the Taira clan, he began to implement policies that would reshape the military and political landscape of Japan. His military campaigns took him to the furthest reaches of the country, ensuring that the Taira had both military control and strategic alliances across Japan. But it was his ability to control the court and maintain the loyalty of the emperor that was most critical to his success. This, once again, was where Empress Kenrei played a vital role. Tokuko continued to use her position to maintain the Taira's dominance in the imperial court. Through her influence over the emperor, she ensured that the Taira's policies were supported and that key figures in the court were loyal to Kiyomori. Despite the growing unrest and opposition to the Taira's rule, Empress Kenrei's political maneuvering kept the family's enemies at bay. It is important to note that during this time, the Taira clan was not universally loved. Many members of the court viewed Kiyomori's rise as an affront to the natural order of power. The Taira had come from humble military beginnings, and their sudden ascent to the highest echelons of power was viewed by some as an act of arrogance. But Kiyomori and Tokuko were not easily dissuaded. They understood that power was not just a matter of military strength, it was about maintaining alliances and securing loyalty. Especially in the volatile world of the Heian court. Through Tokuko's deft handling of court politics and Kiyomori's military leadership, the Taira clan became the undisputed rulers of Japan. But this success came at a cost. The Minamoto clan, though beaten, would not accept their defeat quietly. They were plotting in the shadows. And a new conflict, one that would have far-reaching consequences for the future of Japan, was fast approaching. The Genpei War, the most famous of Japan's civil wars, would soon engulf the country, pitting the Taira and the Minamoto in a struggle for control that would forever change the course of history. The stage was set, and as the Taira's power reached its zenith, the inevitable clash with the Minamoto loomed on the horizon. By the late 1160s, the Taira clan, under the leadership of Taira no Kiyomori, had reached the height of its power. The military victories, political alliances, and marriages that had brought the family to prominence now seemed unshakable. Kiyomori had secured the most powerful position in Japan, Daijo Daijin, Prime Minister, effectively making him the second most powerful man in the nation. Right behind the emperor, the Taira were no longer just a military clan, they were the force behind the imperial family, controlling the levers of power in the court and the country. Yet, despite the outward appearance of stability, deep undercurrents of dissent and rivalry began to brew. The Minamoto clan, though defeated in the Hagen Rebellion, had not been eliminated as a threat. They were regrouping in the shadows, silently preparing for a larger, more decisive confrontation with the Taira. The Minamoto's desire for revenge, coupled with their sense of having been wronged by the Taira's rising power, made them a formidable foe. The rift between the Taira and Minamoto families had deep roots. For decades, these two clans had been locked in a bitter rivalry, each vying for control over the imperial court. Though Kiyomori's victories had temporarily neutralized the Minamoto, the clan's powerful military leaders, especially Minamoto no Yoshitomo, were not ones to easily accept defeat. As Kiyomori expanded his power, the Minamoto saw this as a direct challenge to their rightful place in the nation's leadership. The stage was now set for an inevitable showdown. However, Empress Kenrei, who had played such an important role in ensuring the Taira's rise, was not blind to the brewing storm. She understood that the political landscape was becoming increasingly volatile, and that Kiyomori's hold on power, while secure in the short term, was far from permanent. Tokuko, though always a quiet force in the background, had begun to feel the strain of the Taira clan's dominance. She knew that the balance of power within the court was delicate and that any misstep could bring down the empire her family had built. Despite her influential position as the emperor's mother and Kiyomori's trusted partner, Tokuko found herself in a difficult position. Her personal loyalty to Kiyomori was absolute. But as the tension between the Taira and the Minamoto escalated, Tokuko had to navigate the complex dynamics of the imperial court. The emperor, Emperor Antoku, was a mere child, and Tokuko's political maneuvers had to be subtle. Though she was deeply involved in the court, she had to maintain a facade of calm, projecting an image of unity while the Taira faced mounting opposition from the outside world. In the midst of this political storm, the Heiji Rebellion of 1160 was still fresh in everyone's minds. Though Kiyomori had emerged victorious, the rebellion had left a scar on the Taira's rule. It had shown the world that the Minamoto were not to be underestimated. Now, as the Minamoto family began to regain their strength, they sought to challenge the Taira once again. The tension between the two clans reached a boiling point in 1167 with the appointment of Minamoto no Yoshitomo, the leader of the Minamoto clan. As a direct challenge to Kiyomori's influence in the imperial court, Yoshitomo's growing ambition to overthrow the Taira threatened to undo everything Kiyomori had worked for. The Minamoto's military strength was still formidable, and they were rallying support from other dissatisfied factions within the court. As the Minamoto clan sought to position themselves as the rightful rulers of Japan, Empress Kenrei found herself caught in the middle of the struggle. Despite her close relationship with the emperor and her influence in the imperial court, Tokuko's role in the coming conflict would become increasingly complicated. The once thriving alliance between the Fujiwara clan and the Taira was beginning to show cracks, as some members of the Fujiwara family began to align themselves with the Minamoto, fearing that the Taira's dominance was too dangerous for their own political survival. Tokuko, ever the strategic thinker, could see the handwriting on the wall. The Minamoto were making their move, and the time was coming when she would have to make difficult decisions to protect her family's legacy. But what could she do? The Taira clan was already engaged in a delicate battle to retain control of the imperial court, and the idea of another war was not one to be taken lightly. But Tokuko's position as the mother of Emperor Antoku gave her an important advantage. It was clear that if the Minamoto were to gain control of the emperor, the Taira would lose their grip on power. As tensions mounted, Tokuko played a key role in ensuring that the emperor remained loyal to Kiyomori and the Taira faction. But she was also aware that this allegiance would not last forever. The Minamoto, like a storm on the horizon, were gathering strength. It was only a matter of time before they would strike, and the Taira would have to face the consequences. While Tokuko's involvement in the court's politics continued, the stage was set for the eventual eruption of the Genpei War, a war that would bring the Taira and Minamoto clans into direct conflict. This war, one of the most famous and decisive in Japanese history, would change the course of the nation forever. The outcome of this conflict would not only decide the future of the Taira clan but also determine the fate of Japan's imperial system. As the war loomed on the horizon, Empress Kenrei understood that her family's future, and the future of her son Emperor Antoku, were in peril. The decisions made in the coming years would decide not only the Taira's fate but also that of the emperor and the imperial line. Her role in the conflict, though not as visible as Kiyomori's military leadership, would prove to be just as significant. The survival of her family, the maintenance of the Taira's power, and the protection of her son's legacy were all riding on the outcome of the inevitable war between the Taira and Minamoto. The winds of change were sweeping through Japan, and with them came the overwhelming influence of the Taira clan. After the Hagen Rebellion, where the Taira secured their position as the dominant force in Japan, Kiyomori's military victories were transformed into political power. The imperial court, once dominated by the Fujiwara clan, now found itself under the iron grip of the Taira. It was a moment in Japanese history when the old order seemed to be falling apart, and a new era of military rule was dawning. By 1167, the Taira clan had successfully established its hegemony over the imperial court. Kiyomori's military victories had granted him political leverage, but it was his strategic positioning within the court that truly solidified his position as Japan's most powerful man. He had outmaneuvered his rivals, including the Fujiwara, whose power was now waning, and had elevated the Taira family to a position from which there was no turning back. For Empress Kenrei, the wife of Kiyomori, this shift in power marked the culmination of years of carefully constructed alliances. Through her marriage to Kiyomori, Tokuko had secured a foothold within the court, one that allowed her to act as the silent but powerful force behind her husband's rise. While Kiyomori took the spotlight on the battlefield and in court, it was Tokuko's political savvy, her quiet strength, and her familial connections that ensured the Taira's dominance in the imperial court. Kiyomori's rise to the position of chief minister. The apex of Kiyomori's political career came in 1167, when he was appointed to the position of Daijo Daijin, prime minister. This position, the highest in the imperial court, effectively made Kiyomori the second most powerful man in Japan, just behind the emperor himself. The appointment was the culmination of a series of strategic maneuvers by Kiyomori, who had spent years positioning himself and the Taira clan at the very center of Japanese politics. Kiyomori's rise was not without its challenges, and the Taira faced opposition from various factions within the court. However, through a combination of military strength, political alliances, and the loyalty of his family members, Kiyomori was able to neutralize those threats. His ability to navigate the complex web of court politics and his deep understanding of the imperial system allowed him to rise above his rivals. It was Empress Kenrei who played a key role in securing Kiyomori's political future. While Kiyomori focused on military affairs, Tokuko worked diligently behind the scenes to maintain the Taira's dominance in the court. As the mother of Emperor Antoku, the reigning monarch, Tokuko had direct access to the emperor and played a crucial role in ensuring that the emperor's loyalties lay with the Taira. She worked tirelessly to ensure that Kiyomori's influence was consolidated, using her position to secure key alliances within the court. Through her close relationship with the emperor, Tokuko was able to help Kiyomori maintain the loyalty of the imperial household. She deftly manipulated the court's politics, securing important positions for the Taira family and ensuring that the imperial family remained loyal to Kiyomori's faction. This political acumen, combined with her familial ties, made Tokuko an indispensable figure in the Taira clan's rise, political maneuvering and consolidation of power. With Kiyomori firmly established as the Daijo Daijin, he began to consolidate his power further. He elevated members of his family to key positions within the government, ensuring that the Taira's influence stretched far and wide across Japan. His son, Taira no Shigemori, was made the head of the Taira clan, solidifying the family's leadership and ensuring that the next generation would carry on the Taira legacy. But Kiyomori's rise was not just about securing power for his family. It was also about transforming the structure of the imperial court itself. Under his leadership, the Taira clan began to exert an unparalleled level of control over the government, reshaping the imperial administration to serve their interests. The Taira's dominance extended far beyond the court. Their military might ensured that no rival clan could challenge their authority. Kiyomori's efforts to secure his family's future did not go unnoticed. His political maneuvers were met with both admiration and fear. Many in the court recognized that the Taira clan had become the de facto rulers of Japan. But there were also those who viewed Kiyomori's rise with suspicion. The Minamoto clan, in particular, saw Kiyomori's appointment as a direct threat to their own power. Though the Minamoto had been defeated in the Hagen Rebellion, they were far from finished. They began to regroup, plotting their next move in a bid to reclaim their position within the imperial court. However, for the time being, the Taira were unchallenged, their power was consolidated, and the court was firmly under their control. It was during this period that the Taira began to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Kiyomori's position as Daijo Daijin gave him the authority to reshape the political landscape, and his influence reached into every corner of the empire. Yet, even as he basked in his power, Kiyomori knew that the greatest threat to the Taira clan's dominance was not external, it was internal. Internal struggles and tensions within the Taira clan. While the Taira were enjoying unprecedented success, cracks began to appear within their ranks. Kiyomori's rise to power had been meteoric, but it had come at a cost. His family, though loyal, had become divided by the immense power Kiyomori had accumulated. His sons, Taira no Shigemori and Taira no Kiyomori's other heirs, were all vying for influence, leading to growing tensions within the clan. Kiyomori, aware of these tensions, worked to maintain his control over the Taira family. He sought to solidify his position by securing his son's loyalty through marriage alliances. But this was not enough to quell the simmering dissatisfaction within the clan. The rivalry between Kiyomori's sons threatened to undermine the unity of the Taira clan, and this internal discord would have serious consequences in the years to come. Yet, despite these internal struggles, the Taira clan remained at the zenith of power. Kiyomori's leadership, bolstered by Empress Kenrei's influence, kept the family's grip on the imperial court firm. Tokuko continued to play a pivotal role in ensuring the stability of the Taira's rule, her influence behind the scenes as powerful as ever. As the mother of Emperor Antoku, she remained a critical figure in maintaining the Taira's connection to the throne. But as the Minamoto clan began to regroup and plan their revenge, the Taira knew that their time at the top might be limited. The growing threat from the Minamoto, combined with the internal struggles within the Taira clan itself, created a volatile situation. The seeds of future conflict were already being sown, and it was clear that the Taira's dominance could not last forever. The role of Empress Kenrei in the coming conflict. As the Taira's power reached its peak, Empress Kenrei remained a key player in the political landscape of Japan. Her position as the emperor's mother made her one of the most influential women in Japan, and her ability to navigate the complexities of court politics ensured that the Taira's grip on power remained strong. Tokuko, ever the pragmatist, understood that the Taira's power would not remain unchallenged forever. She knew that the Minamoto clan would eventually make their move, and when they did, the Taira would need all the support they could muster. It was Tokuko's ability to build alliances and maintain the loyalty of key court figures that allowed the Taira to stay in power during this turbulent period. But even she knew that the future of the Taira clan was uncertain, and that the coming conflict could prove to be their undoing. Through her quiet influence, Empress Kenrei helped steer the Taira through these dangerous times, ensuring that her family remained a dominant force within the court. She continued to act as the glue that held the Taira's power together, her political acumen ensuring that Kiyomori's vision for the clan's future would come to fruition, at least for the time being. But the Minamoto were patient, and the stage was set for the eventual confrontation that would tear the Taira from their perch at the top. As the Taira clan's dominance over Japan's imperial court reached its zenith, the clan's internal struggles and external threats were already sowing the seeds of its eventual downfall. The Minamoto clan, once defeated in the Hagen Rebellion, were quietly rebuilding their strength, preparing to challenge the Taira once again. And at the heart of the Taira's political dynasty was Empress Kenrei, the mother of Emperor Antoku, whose own position in the court became both a symbol of Taira power and a reminder of the fragility of their hold on the throne. The Taira clan had once been seen as mere military opportunists, but by the time Kiyomori rose to the position of Daijo Daijin, they had become an unstoppable political force. Yet the clan's power was rooted in Kiyomori's charisma and military victories, not the hereditary strength of their position. Empress Kenrei, as the mother of the emperor, was an indispensable figure in maintaining the Taira's connection to the throne and ensuring the continuity of their power. As Kiyomori and his allies extended their reach throughout Japan, Tokuko's role in the court became more crucial than ever before. Tokuko's son, Emperor Antoku, had ascended to the throne in 1180 at the young age of only 2 years old, effectively making him a puppet ruler controlled by the Taira clan. Despite the emperor's youth, Tokuko, as his mother, wielded significant power in court affairs. She remained a stabilizing force within the imperial family, ensuring that Kiyomori's influence remained intact even as the tides of political power began to shift against them. For Tokuko, the weight of her role was immense. As the mother of the emperor, she was charged with ensuring not only his well-being but the future of the Taira clan. She knew that the Taira's rule, despite their power, was fragile, subject to the whims of rival factions, and one day, the power of the Minamoto clan might return with a vengeance. This knowledge drove Tokuko to protect her family at all costs, even as the risks of political downfall began to mount. But Empress Kenrei was also a mother in the truest sense. Her devotion to Emperor Antoku was clear in every action she took, from arranging alliances to maintaining the Taira family's grip on courtly affairs. She was not just a passive figurehead, she was a force within the court, working quietly and strategically to maintain her son's rule and, by extension, the future of the Taira. The growing threat of the Minamoto clan. While Empress Kenrei worked tirelessly to maintain the Taira's dominance within the imperial court, the Minamoto clan was quietly rebuilding its strength, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Minamoto, though decimated in the Hagen Rebellion, had never given up their claim to the throne. They were determined to reclaim their rightful place at the heart of the imperial family. And they saw the Taira as interlopers, usurpers who had stolen power that rightfully belonged to them. By 1180, under the leadership of Minamoto no Yoritomo, the Minamoto clan had begun to rally support from various dissatisfied factions within Japan. These included remnants of the Minamoto family, samurai from across Japan, and even members of the imperial court who resented the Taira's growing influence. Yoritomo's goal was simple: overthrow the Taira and restore the Minamoto to their rightful position in the imperial court. The Taira's hold on the emperor, particularly Emperor Antoku, was now a direct threat to the Minamoto's ambitions. The Genpei War, which would soon erupt, was the culmination of decades of rivalry between the Taira and Minamoto families. It was not simply a war between two families, it was a war for the very future of Japan's imperial line. As the conflict began to brew, both the Taira clan and the Minamoto clan knew that their destinies would be decided on the battlefield. Yet, while Kiyomori and Yoritomo were key military figures, the fate of the war would also depend on the support they could garner within the court. Tokuko's role in the growing conflict. While the Minamoto clan gathered strength in the provinces, Empress Kenrei found herself at the heart of a growing political storm. Her position as the mother of Emperor Antoku made her a critical figure in the unfolding events. Though she was deeply loyal to her husband, Kiyomori, and the Taira, she could not ignore the fact that the Minamoto were gaining support and momentum. Tokuko's loyalty to her family was unwavering, but she was also a mother and a pragmatist. She knew that her son's future, and the future of the Taira clan, rested on her ability to navigate the political and military turmoil that was fast approaching. Tokuko continued to act as the key intermediary between the emperor and the Taira faction, ensuring that the imperial court remained loyal to her family. She maintained her role as an influential figure within the palace, ensuring that the Taira clan would hold sway over the court's decision-making. But despite her political skill, Tokuko could not stop the rising tide of Minamoto resentment. The Minamoto's challenge to Taira dominance was growing stronger by the day, and she knew that the impending conflict would test the limits of her family's power. Tokuko's deepening role in the court was not without personal cost. She felt the immense burden of her son's position, constantly aware of the delicate balance she had to maintain between keeping her family's power intact and ensuring her son's future. Her relationship with Kiyomori, though one of mutual respect, began to show signs of strain. Kiyomori's health was beginning to deteriorate, and with the Genpei War looming on the horizon, Tokuko faced the painful reality that the future of her family was uncertain. The Genpei War begins. In 1180, the Minamoto clan finally launched their full-scale rebellion. Their forces, under Minamoto no Yoritomo, began to move toward the heart of Japan's political power, the imperial court. As the Taira clan began to prepare for the inevitable clash, Empress Kenrei continued to serve as a bridge between the imperial family and the political reality of the time. She worked tirelessly to rally the support of key allies. Though the situation was becoming more dire by the day, the Genpei War officially began, and Japan was plunged into a brutal conflict that would last for several years. The war was marked by fierce battles, shifting alliances, and the devastation of the Japanese countryside. Yet, amid the chaos, Empress Kenrei remained a steadfast figure within the court, ensuring that Emperor Antoku continued to serve as the symbolic figurehead of the Taira clan's rule. However, her influence alone could not prevent the inevitable. The Minamoto clan's military strength and their ability to rally support from across Japan made them a formidable enemy. The Taira clan was soon faced with a dire reality: they were no longer the undisputed rulers of Japan. Their military strength, though formidable, was no match for the strategic brilliance of the Minamoto forces. The battle for Japan's future had begun, and both the Taira and Minamoto families would pay a heavy price for the privilege of controlling the imperial throne. As the Genpei War unfolded, Empress Kenrei's role in ensuring the survival of her son, Emperor Antoku, and the Taira clan's legacy became even more critical. Yet, with the forces of Minamoto no Yoritomo closing in, the Taira's grip on power was slipping. The end of the war was drawing near, and the fate of the imperial family, as well as the future of Japan, would soon be decided in one final, devastating confrontation. By the summer of 1180, the stage was set for a violent, world-altering confrontation that would come to define the future of Japan. The Minamoto clan, though historically outmatched by the Taira in terms of political influence, had spent years rebuilding their strength. The rise of Minamoto no Yoritomo, a brilliant military strategist, breathed new life into the clan. In the years after their defeat in the Hagen Rebellion, the Minamoto had slowly but surely gathered support from disillusioned factions within the imperial court. Disgruntled samurai, and regional lords eager for a change in the power structure. In 1180, Yoritomo, emboldened by the growing unrest with the Taira, formally declared rebellion against the Taira clan, setting into motion the fateful events of the Genpei War. The Taira, who had ruled Japan with seemingly unassailable power for nearly 2 decades, now faced the full brunt of a rising tide of opposition. Though Kiyomori had been a brilliant tactician, his sudden death in 1181 further weakened the Taira's military prowess and their political standing. Kiyomori's health had been failing, and with his death, the Taira family lost not only their most capable leader but also their unifying force. In the wake of Kiyomori's death, Empress Kenrei faced the harsh reality that the stability her husband had worked so hard to build was slipping away. She was left to defend her son, Emperor Antoku, the last true hope of the Taira's imperial connection. While the forces of the Minamoto closed in on the capital, Tokuko's political role had been pivotal in maintaining the Taira's hold on the emperor. But she was now confronted with the impending collapse of her family's power. The Genpei War, which had simmered for years, was now a full-scale conflict, and the fate of the Taira clan hung in the balance. The battle for the throne. As the Minamoto forces began to march on Kyoto, the capital of Japan, Empress Kenrei's position became even more critical. She could no longer afford to be the silent strategist behind the scenes. Tokuko's role as the empress and mother of the emperor placed her directly in the path of the Taira clan's impending downfall. She had been instrumental in securing Emperor Antoku's position on the throne and maintaining the legitimacy of the Taira's reign. But now, with Kiyomori gone, the Taira were losing the court's favor. In the face of the Minamoto threat, Tokuko's devotion to her son remained unwavering. She knew that the Minamoto would not stop until they had overthrown the Taira completely. And the last symbol of their power was the emperor himself. If Emperor Antoku fell, so too would the Taira. Tokuko fought desperately to keep the Taira's position intact, trying to use her influence within the court to gather any remaining supporters. However, the situation was dire. The Minamoto forces were gaining ground, and the Taira clan's control of Kyoto seemed increasingly tenuous. The Battle of Uji, the Taira's last stand, one of the pivotal moments of the Genpei War, came in 1180. When the Battle of Uji was fought, in this confrontation, the Taira attempted to push back the Minamoto forces that were marching toward Kyoto. The battle was fierce, with heavy casualties on both sides, and it marked the beginning of the end for the Taira's military dominance. Though the Taira were initially able to repel the Minamoto, it was clear that the tide of battle was beginning to turn. In the aftermath of the Battle of Uji, the Taira were forced to retreat from Kyoto and regroup in the western regions of Japan, where they had strong support. Empress Kenrei, witnessing the collapse of her family's once mighty empire, retreated to the imperial palace with her son, Emperor Antoku. It was here that Tokuko's motherly instincts, mixed with political cunning, became evident. She knew the importance of keeping the emperor alive, and she ensured that the court continued to support her son, even as the Minamoto forces closed in on Kyoto. Despite her best efforts to hold on to power, the Taira were steadily being pushed back. Their military strength, once formidable under Kiyomori's leadership, was now fragmented. Without Kiyomori's unifying force, the Taira were disorganized, and the Minamoto were capitalizing on this weakness. At this critical juncture, Empress Kenrei made one of the most difficult decisions of her life. The tragic decision, the fate of Emperor Antoku. In 1185, as the Taira clan fought desperately to hold on to their last stronghold, the Battle of Dan no Ura became the defining moment of the Genpei War. It was here, in this dramatic sea battle, that the Taira's last hope was extinguished. As the Minamoto forces closed in, Emperor Antoku and Empress Kenrei found themselves at the center of the conflict. The Taira clan had suffered enormous losses, and it was clear that defeat was imminent. In a moment of overwhelming grief and desperation, Empress Kenrei, knowing that her son's death would mark the end of the Taira's hold on power, made a heart-wrenching decision. rather than allow Emperor Antoku to be captured by the Minamoto forces. She chose to drown him in the sea. Along with her son, many members of the Taira family perished in the battle, and the imperial line that had once been so powerful came to a tragic and abrupt end. Tokuko's decision to sacrifice her son rather than let him fall into the hands of the enemy was one of the most tragic moments in Japanese history. It was a final, desperate attempt to preserve the honor of the Taira family, ensuring that the emperor could not be used as a pawn by the Minamoto. The death of Emperor Antoku marked the final defeat of the Taira clan. The Minamoto emerged victorious, and with their triumph, they established the Kamakura Shogunate, the first military government of Japan. The Taira clan's rule was over, and the Minamoto would go on to dominate Japan for the next several centuries. The legacy of Empress Kenrei. After the fall of the Taira, Empress Kenrei became a symbol of the tragic loss of power and glory. Her role in the Genpei War was largely overshadowed by the military conflict and the rise of the Minamoto. But her actions in the final days of the Taira remain a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made to preserve family and honor. Tokuko's devotion to her son, even in the face of overwhelming odds, marked her as a mother who would stop at nothing to protect her family, even if it meant losing everything. Though the Taira clan was defeated, Empress Kenrei's legacy lived on. Her story, like that of her family, became immortalized in the annals of Japanese history. A story of ambition, loyalty, and tragedy. And while the Minamoto may have won the war, it was the Taira's fate that would be remembered, as a symbol of the ephemeral nature of power and the heavy price of ambition. With the Taira clan's devastating defeat at the Battle of Dan no Ura, the Genpei War came to a definitive end. The Minamoto clan's victory not only solidified their control over Japan but also marked the dawn of a new political era. The Taira's grip on the imperial court, which had lasted for nearly 2 decades, was irrevocably shattered. Japan's future would no longer be dominated by courtly factions but would instead see the rise of military rule, with the Minamoto clan taking their place as the new rulers of Japan. The Minamoto's success was largely attributed to the leadership of Minamoto no Yoritomo, who, after years of careful planning and alliances, emerged as the first shogun in 1185. He established the Kamakura Shogunate, Japan's first military government, which would last for centuries. This shift from imperial rule to military rule marked the beginning of the Kamakura period, where the shogunate system would dominate Japanese politics, sidelining the emperor and the imperial court in favor of military leaders who controlled the country's political and military decisions. Yet, even as the Minamoto celebrated their victory, the tragic legacy of the Taira clan, and of Empress Kenrei, remained an indelible part of Japan's history. Tokuko's sacrifice, as the mother of Emperor Antoku, marked the final act of the Taira dynasty, one that would forever be etched into the collective memory of the Japanese people. Her choice to end her son's life rather than see him captured and used as a pawn by the Minamoto demonstrated the depth of her devotion to her family. But it also underscored the tragic downfall of a once great clan, the Minamoto shogunate and the imperial family. As the Kamakura shogunate established its dominance, the role of the imperial family was relegated to a largely symbolic one. The emperor, once the central figure in Japanese political life, was now a mere figurehead with little real power. The Minamoto clan, under Yoritomo, took control of Japan's military and administrative functions, while the imperial family, still residing in Kyoto, was stripped of its former authority. The impact of the Minamoto's victory was not just political, it was also deeply personal for the surviving members of the Taira clan. With the fall of the Taira, the imperial connection that had once legitimized their rule was now severed. The imperial family, which had been tightly bound to the Taira clan, now found itself without the powerful military backing it had enjoyed during the Taira reign. The Minamoto brought their own form of rule, grounded in military control and feudal obligations, and the old aristocratic ways of the court were swept away. For Empress Kenrei, the fall of the Taira and the loss of her son, Emperor Antoku, was the ultimate tragedy. Her family's rise to power had been marked by careful political maneuvering, strategic marriages, and military triumphs, but it had all been undone in a matter of years. The The Taira's dominance in the imperial court had given way to a new order, and the Taira were now relegated to the history books. Yet, despite the end of their political power, the Taira's legacy lived on, particularly in the way the Minamoto regarded them. The memory of the Taira clan's tragic fall, particularly the loss of Emperor Antoku, remained an important part of Japanese cultural consciousness. The Taira family's rise and fall became the subject of legend and literature, immortalized in the epic Heike Monogatari, which chronicled the Taira's rise to power and their eventual downfall. Empress Kenrei herself became a symbol of the sacrifices made for the sake of family and the intense loyalty that defined the Taira's legacy. The Taira's enduring legacy in history and culture. Though the Taira clan's political power had been crushed, their legacy endured in other ways. The Taira had brought the imperial court to its peak, and their influence over the emperor was never truly forgotten. The Minamoto may have seized power, but the Taira had reshaped the political landscape, and their story became a cautionary tale of ambition, power, and the fleeting nature of fortune. The Heike Monogatari, a classic piece of Japanese literature, immortalized the Taira clan and their tragic fate. This epic tale, passed down through generations, painted a vivid picture of the rise and fall of the Taira, and it helped cement the family's place in Japan's collective memory. The story of Empress Kenrei, too, became a part of this cultural tapestry, a story of a mother's devotion to her son, and the heartbreaking decisions she was forced to make in order to protect her family. The Minamoto clan, for all its triumph, could not erase the cultural significance of the Taira's rule. Despite their victory, the Minamoto would forever be linked to the Taira clan's legacy. The conflicts between the two families, the shifting power dynamics, and the lessons learned from the Taira's rise and fall would echo throughout Japanese history. Empress Kenrei's lasting influence. Though Empress Kenrei did not live to see the long-term consequences of her family's fall from power, her actions during the Genpei War left an indelible mark on the course of Japanese history. She had been the last remaining protector of the Taira dynasty, and in her final, tragic act of sacrificing her son, she preserved her family's honor in the face of utter defeat. Tokuko's story transcended her immediate political context. She was not just the mother of an emperor, she was a symbol of maternal sacrifice, of loyalty, and of the ephemeral nature of power. Her role as the empress had once been marked by elegance and diplomacy. But in the end, it was her unyielding love for her son and her determination to safeguard his legacy that defined her. Empress Kenrei became a figure not of political intrigue or courtly maneuvering, but of deep personal sacrifice. Her legacy defined by the tragedy of her family's fall and the enduring love she had for her son. Emperor Antoku. The final chapter of the Taira dynasty closed with a battle on the sea. But the Taira's influence and the story of their downfall would echo for generations to come. As Japan moved into the Kamakura period, the Minamoto clan held sway over the land. But it was the memory of the Taira, and the story of Empress Kenrei's sacrifice, that would remain etched in the hearts and minds of the people. The Genpei War had not only been a conflict between the Taira and the Minamoto clans, but it had fundamentally reshaped the political fabric of Japan. The war marked the end of imperial rule and the beginning of military dominance, with the Kamakura shogunate replacing the Heian court system that had existed for centuries. This transition would forever change the nature of Japanese governance, paving the way for centuries of military rule under the shogunate system. However, the impact of the Taira clan's rise and fall, particularly through the lens of Empress Kenrei, remained ever present in the minds of the Japanese people. The Minamoto clan's victory in the Genpei War not only ended the Taira's political reign but also marked the first significant shift in Japan's governance. Under Minamoto no Yoritomo, the Kamakura shogunate was born, consolidating military power in the hands of a warrior class that would dominate the country for the next several centuries. The emperor, once the center of all political power, was relegated to a largely ceremonial role, with real authority held by the military leaders in Kamakura. This marked the birth of feudal Japan, where the samurai class held the reins of the country's political and military affairs. Yet, despite the rise of the Minamoto and the shogunate, the memory of the Taira clan and their tragic fall continued to linger in the collective consciousness of Japan. The Taira had once been the dominant family in Japan, holding immense power through military might and strategic alliances. But as their empire crumbled in the wake of the Genpei War, so too did the belief in the permanence of power itself. The Taira had been brought low by the very forces they sought to control, and their downfall became a cautionary tale for future generations. The symbolism of Empress Kenrei's sacrifice. Though the Minamoto had achieved victory, they were not untouched by the Taira's legacy. The story of Empress Kenrei, the mother who had sacrificed her son, Emperor Antoku, to preserve her family's honor, became a poignant symbol of loyalty, devotion, and sacrifice. Her decision to drown her son rather than let him fall into the hands of the Minamoto was one of the most tragic acts in Japanese history. This sacrifice, done out of a mother's love and a desire to protect her family's legacy, had deep cultural and emotional resonance in Japan, transcending political lines and becoming a symbol of personal loss and national tragedy. As the Kamakura shogunate rose to power, Empress Kenrei's legacy as a mother who chose family honor over personal survival became immortalized in literature and folktales. The Taira clan's once mighty position was now a memory, but the emotional weight of Tokuko's decision carried forward, encapsulating the impermanence of power and the sacrifices made in the pursuit of it. The Heike Monogatari, an epic chronicling the rise and fall of the Taira clan, became one of Japan's most important literary works. Within it, Empress Kenrei's story stood out as one of the most heart-wrenching episodes, symbolizing the emotional cost of war and the fleeting nature of political power. Her sacrifice for the Taira clan and her son became a universal symbol of maternal love and the often tragic consequences of ambition. Though she did not live to see the long-term results of the Minamoto's rule, Tokuko's legacy lived on as a reminder of the fragility of power and the sacrifices that are often demanded by it. Her tragic end, tied to the fall of the Taira, resonated across generations, influencing the cultural and political mindset of Japan. For the people of Japan, the fall of the Taira and the rise of the Minamoto signified the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. But it also left a scar that would not soon heal. The shogunate's legacy, a new Japan. The Kamakura shogunate ushered in a new political order, where the samurai were the ruling class and the emperor's power was increasingly symbolic. The shogunate system would dominate Japanese politics for centuries, with Minamoto no Yoritomo at its head. However, the nature of Japan's governance changed as well. Feudalism became entrenched, and the samurai class found themselves at the center of not just military leadership but also governance and social structure. This new order marked a distinct departure from the Heian period of aristocratic rule. But even as the Minamoto solidified their power, they could not escape the shadows cast by the Taira. The Minamoto, as the victors of the Genpei War, were tasked with navigating a delicate balance. They had to maintain the loyalty of the imperial family, which they had effectively sidelined, while also consolidating power across the country's feudal lords. While the Minamoto enjoyed their triumph, they faced the monumental task of creating a lasting legacy that could preserve their power. The Kamakura shogunate established a military governance model that would last well into the 14th century. Yet, as time passed, it became evident that the shogunate's power was not as invulnerable as it once seemed. Despite their initial victories, the Minamoto clan faced their own set of challenges, and the seeds of future conflict began to emerge within the samurai class itself. The legacy of the Taira clan, though long gone from the political stage, continued to influence the Minamoto's rule. The story of the Taira's rise and fall, and the personal sacrifice made by Empress Kenrei, were reminders to the Minamoto that power was not guaranteed and could easily slip away. As much as they had conquered the Taira, the Minamoto also saw the ephemeral nature of their own rise, knowing that they too could one day face the same fate. The Taira clan's influence on future generations. Though the Taira clan had been defeated, their influence on Japan's culture and governance could not be easily erased. In literature, art, and folklore, the Taira's rise and fall were explored as a tragedy, a reminder of how ambition and power could blind even the most powerful to their eventual destruction. The Taira clan's story would live on in the hearts and minds of the people, a symbol of hubris and tragic downfall. In modern Japan, the story of the Taira clan is still remembered, particularly through the lens of Empress Kenrei's sacrifice. She remains an iconic figure, celebrated for her maternal devotion, her strength in the face of overwhelming loss, and her refusal to let her son become a pawn in the hands of the enemy. Her story is often invoked in discussions of loyalty, duty, and the tragic consequences of unchecked ambition. The Heike Monogatari and subsequent works of literature continue to reflect on the ideals and consequences of power. And Empress Kenrei is often portrayed as a central figure in the exploration of human frailty and the costs of familial loyalty. The fall of the Taira clan and the tragic sacrifice of Empress Kenrei left an indelible mark on the historical and cultural consciousness of Japan. As the Minamoto clan established their Kamakura shogunate, Japan moved into an era where military rulers, the samurai, would dominate the political landscape. Yet, despite the Minamoto's victory and their rise to power, the Taira's tragic end continued to echo throughout Japanese society. The story of their rise and fall, filled with grandeur and ruin, was a cautionary tale that would shape Japan's view of power, family loyalty, and the impermanence of fortune. The literary legacy of the Taira clan. The Heike Monogatari, a powerful narrative that chronicled the Taira clan's rise to power, their internal struggles, and their catastrophic fall, became one of the most significant literary works in Japanese history. The epic retold the story of the Taira and Minamoto families, focusing on the dramatic events of the Genpei War. The Heike Monogatari painted a vivid picture of the Taira as a family of immense ambition, whose hubris led to their eventual destruction. It was a story of glory, betrayal, and human frailty, but it was also one that highlighted the complex dynamics of family, loyalty, and fate. Within this epic, the figure of Empress Kenrei stood out as one of the most poignant symbols of sacrifice and devotion. Her final act, drowning her son, Emperor Antoku, in the sea to prevent him from falling into the hands of the victorious Minamoto, became one of the most heart-wrenching moments in Japanese literature. Empress Kenrei was remembered not just as a political figure but as a mother who had to make an unimaginable choice: the preservation of her family's honor and the protection of her son from humiliation at the hands of the Minamoto. The Heike Monogatari, alongside other cultural representations of the Taira, ensured that their legacy lived on in Japanese culture long after their downfall. The epic became a standard text for understanding the tragic nature of the Taira's fall and the cyclical nature of fortune. The Taira's rise to power, their swift fall, and the deep human emotions involved, particularly in the case of Empress Kenrei, captured the Japanese imagination, transcending the specifics of the Genpei War and becoming a symbol of impermanence and the consequences of unchecked ambition. The Taira clan is a symbol of power and fallibility. In the years that followed the Minamoto's establishment of the Kamakura shogunate, the memory of the Taira clan served as a warning. Their story represented the perils of excessive ambition, the dangers of rising too high too quickly, and the inevitability of decline when one overreaches. The Taira clan's fall also illustrated the fragility of power and the way it could be usurped by forces beyond one's control. No matter how powerful or influential one had been, the Taira clan's rise and fall became a central part of Japan's national psyche, an embodiment of the impermanence of worldly affairs. The Taira had enjoyed unparalleled influence in the court, dominating the emperor and military affairs. Yet their power was swept away by the Minamoto in a matter of years. The Genpei War and the Taira's tragic defeat mirrored the ever-changing nature of Japanese feudal politics, where today's victors could quickly become tomorrow's losers. The Minamoto had not only defeated the Taira on the battlefield, they had replaced them as the dominant force in Japan. Yet, in the eyes of the people, the Taira's story lived on, as a powerful reminder of the price of ambition, the cost of war, and the sacrifice of family. The Minamoto were victorious, but they inherited the Taira's legacy, with all the lessons and cautions that came with it. Empress Kenrei's role in Japanese memory. While Empress Kenrei did not survive the fall of the Taira clan, her story continued to resonate in Japanese culture. She was seen not just as a mother who sacrificed her son but as a figure who represented the spirit of loyalty, self-sacrifice, and the sometimes devastating consequences of duty. In Japanese literature, drama, and poetry, Empress Kenrei was often depicted as a tragic figure whose personal anguish was set against the backdrop of national tragedy. Her story was a reflection of the broader themes of the Genpei War, which was itself a conflict not only between two powerful families but between the forces of loyalty, pride, and ambition. In various forms of storytelling, Empress Kenrei was portrayed as the ultimate tragic heroine. Her devotion to her son, Emperor Antoku, and her loyalty to the Taira clan, despite their inevitable downfall, became emblematic of the Japanese ideal of family loyalty. Her act of sacrificing her son, while seemingly incomprehensible, was also viewed as the ultimate expression of maternal love and honor. A mother who chose to preserve her son's dignity rather than let him fall into the hands of their enemies. In the centuries following the Genpei War, Empress Kenrei continued to inspire poets, artists, and historians. Her sacrifice was seen as the embodiment of the transient nature of power and the emotional toll of political conflict. Empress Kenrei remained a central figure in the cultural memory of the Taira clan's rise and fall, reminding future generations of the costs of power and the profound personal sacrifices that history often demands. The Taira clan's lasting impact on feudal Japan. The Taira clan's legacy did not only endure in literary works, it influenced the political and military dynamics of feudal Japan as well. The Minamoto clan's victory established a new order. But the imperial court, though sidelined, still carried weight in Japan's political sphere. The shogunate system that arose after the Taira's fall was built on a complex relationship between the military leaders and the imperial family, one that was shaped by the history of the Genpei War. The Taira clan's legacy was also reflected in the samurai code of Bushido, which emphasized loyalty, honor, and the inevitable nature of death. The Taira's fall served as a powerful lesson for the samurai class, who now held the reins of power. Bushido became a code of conduct that balanced personal ambition with duty to one's lord and family, echoing the lessons learned from the Taira's tragic rise and fall. In many ways, the Taira clan's legacy shaped the direction of Japanese feudalism, serving as a template for the Minamoto-led Kamakura shogunate. The imperial court's shifting role and the rise of military rule would forever be influenced by the events of the Genpei War, and the Taira clan's legacy remained deeply ingrained in the nation's political culture. The events of the Genpei War and the downfall of the Taira clan had irrevocably altered the course of Japan's political, social, and cultural trajectory. With the rise of the Kamakura shogunate under Minamoto no Yoritomo in 1185, the country was thrust into an era of military rule that would last for centuries. The Kamakura period was defined by the rule of the samurai, the establishment of feudalism, and a dramatic shift in how power was structured in Japan. The end of the Heian period and the imperial court's transition to a largely ceremonial role signaled the Minamoto clan's dominance in Japan. Empress Kenrei and the Taira clan's tragic downfall became a defining moment in this transition. The Taira's legacy, as well as the deep moral and emotional lessons derived from their fall, would permeate throughout the Kamakura period and inform much of the culture and values of the samurai class that now dominated the country. The Samurai's Code, a legacy shaped by the Taira and Minamoto. With the Minamoto's victory, military power in Japan became entrenched in the hands of the samurai, the warrior class that had once been subordinate to the imperial family and aristocracy. The Kamakura shogunate brought with it the rise of feudalism, where land was controlled by military leaders rather than court officials. The samurai became the enforcers of law and order, wielding immense influence over Japan's future direction. However, the Bushido Code, often considered the way of the warrior, became the foundational principle by which the samurai governed their lives. Bushido emphasized loyalty, honor, courage, and self-discipline, principles that were deeply informed by the Taira clan's downfall. The Taira's rise to power, their hubris, and their subsequent fall from grace served as a cautionary tale for the new samurai rulers. The samurai learned the fragility of power through the Taira clan's fall, understanding that even the greatest of military dynasties could collapse if driven by unchecked ambition. The story of Empress Kenrei and her sacrifice became a key moral lesson for the samurai. Her act of drowning Emperor Antoku rather than allowing him to fall into the hands of the Minamoto was viewed as the ultimate act of loyalty and honor. This tragic moment reinforced the importance of family loyalty and the preservation of honor. Two core tenets of Bushido. It was said that, through her sacrifice, Empress Kenrei preserved the honor of the Taira family, even as they were being swept away by the forces of history. The Minamoto shogunate, consolidating power and the samurai ascendancy. As the Minamoto clan solidified its control over Japan, Minamoto no Yoritomo became the first shogun, ushering in the era of military rule that would characterize the Kamakura period. The shogunate system established a new political structure where the shogun held the true power, while the emperor was relegated to a ceremonial role. This marked the end of the Heian period's aristocratic rule and the beginning of a new era of samurai governance. Under the Kamakura shogunate, Minamoto no Yoritomo sought to strengthen the power of the samurai and ensure the stability of his rule. He established a military government in Kamakura, making it the center of political power, and implemented a land distribution system that reinforced the loyalty of his followers. The shogunate system was built on the bonds of feudal loyalty, where samurai served as vassals to their lord in exchange for land and protection. The Taira's fall, however, left a lasting cultural legacy that continued to shape the Kamakura period. The Minamoto clan, though victorious, understood the fragility of their rule and the risks that came with maintaining power. Like the Taira, the Minamoto feared the inevitability of their own decline, and their rule was shaped by the lessons learned from the Taira's hubris and downfall. The cultural memory of the Taira and the Minamoto. As the Kamakura shogunate sought to establish its dominance, it could not escape the cultural shadow cast by the Taira clan's tragic history. The Taira's rise to power, their subsequent loss, and the heartbreaking sacrifice of Empress Kenrei became woven into the fabric of Japanese culture. The Heike Monogatari continued to be a widely read and recited work, and its themes, of glory, fallibility, and sacrifice, resonated with the samurai class who now governed Japan. The Taira clan's story served as a cautionary tale for the Minamoto, that no one, no matter how powerful, could control fate forever. The Kamakura period was thus an era shaped by both victory and remembrance. While the Minamoto clan's military power ensured their dominance, they could not forget the tragic legacy of the Taira. In the same way, the samurai would come to respect the impermanence of power, which would later shape the evolving story of feudal Japan. Empress Kenrei's final legacy, a mother's sacrifice. While the political and military landscape of Japan shifted, the story of Empress Kenrei remained at the heart of Japan's collective memory. Her act of sacrificing her son to preserve his honor and prevent him from falling into enemy hands was symbolic not only of the Taira clan's honor but also of maternal love and the weight of duty. Empress Kenrei's sacrifice was a defining moment that transcended her immediate political circumstances, becoming a symbol of the sacrifices demanded by both family loyalty and political duty. In the Kamakura period, Empress Kenrei's story was often used as a moral framework for the samurai class, emphasizing themes of sacrifice, honor, and devotion to family. Her actions were not just a reflection of the Taira's political collapse but also a deeply human and emotional response to the pressures of being part of a great family. The samurai, who saw themselves as warriors of honor, found a profound connection to her story, and her legacy became part of the moral foundation of the Kamakura era. Her story, as told through literature, theater, and oral traditions, was a reminder to all who held power that it could be lost at any moment. As the Minamoto clan solidified its rule, they understood that the impermanence of power was something they could not ignore. They, too, would face challenges to their rule, and their downfall, when it came, would be shaped by the same forces that led to the fall of the Taira. With the victory of the Minamoto clan in the Genpei War, Japan entered an era that would define its political landscape for centuries, the rise of the Kamakura shogunate. This military regime, led by Minamoto no Yoritomo, signified the end of the imperial era in its traditional form and the ascendancy of the samurai class. The imperial family, though still revered, was relegated to a largely symbolic position, with the real power now firmly in the hands of the shogun and the samurai. It was a dramatic shift from the courtly elegance of the Heian period. And a new political order began to take shape. One that would be dominated by the samurai for generations. The Taira clan's rapid rise and tragic fall had set the stage for this transition. Once the most powerful family in Japan, the Taira's ambition and unchecked power ultimately led to their ruin. Their story, full of military triumph, courtly intrigue, and heartbreaking sacrifice, became a lasting symbol of the impermanence of power. The Heike Monogatari ensured that the tale of the Taira clan would be remembered, not only as a warning of the dangers of hubris but as a reflection of the deep human emotions that accompany political strife: loyalty, love, pride, and loss. In the Kamakura shogunate, the Minamoto clan's rule began with the promise of stability and order after decades of conflict. Minamoto no Yoritomo, as the first shogun, solidified his power by building a feudal system that kept the samurai as the enforcers of law and order. But even as the Minamoto established their dominance, they too were keenly aware of the fragility of their rule. The Taira clan's fall and the way it happened, marked by Empress Kenrei's sacrifice, was a stark reminder to the new shoguns that even the mightiest empire could crumble in the blink of an eye. Power could easily slip away, and the samurai who had triumphed in battle now carried with them the lessons of history, that loyalty and honor were the pillars that upheld a ruler's power. But ambition and pride could quickly lead to downfall. The enduring influence of Empress Kenrei. Though Empress Kenrei had died with the fall of the Taira clan, her legacy lived on far beyond her time. Her story became a symbol of the sacrifice made by mothers, the loyalty to family, and the unflinching resolve in the face of impossible choices. The moral and emotional weight of her actions, sacrificing her son to preserve his honor and protect him from the hands of the Minamoto, touched the hearts of countless generations. In the deeply hierarchical society of the samurai, her act of motherhood became a symbol of ultimate devotion and love, one that transcended politics and warfare. In the Kamakura period, Empress Kenrei's sacrifice was remembered in various forms: poetry, art, and oral traditions. Her story was passed down as a poignant lesson of how the ties of family loyalty could sometimes lead to the most difficult of choices, and how personal honor could sometimes outweigh political or military necessity. The samurai class, governed by their own strict code of ethics and honor, found in Empress Kenrei's act the highest expression of loyalty and sacrifice. She became an enduring moral example for them, illustrating the intense personal cost of holding onto family values, even in the midst of war. Her tragic legacy also represented the enduring ephemeral nature of power. Despite her best efforts to preserve the Taira clan's legacy, the Taira's power slipped away as the Minamoto emerged victorious. But in this very act of sacrifice, Empress Kenrei's legacy became indelible, reminding future generations that no power is ever truly permanent, and that honor, loyalty, and family are the foundations upon which all empires are built, whether they rise or fall. The continuing influence of the Taira clan's rise and fall on Japanese society. As the Kamakura shogunate strengthened its grip on Japan's political landscape, the lessons of the Taira clan's rise and fall continued to reverberate through Japanese society. The story of the Taira became not only a historical lesson but a cultural touchstone for understanding the nature of power, ambition, and family in Japanese life. The Taira clan's rise had been meteoric, and their downfall swift and tragic, mirroring the precarious nature of all political and familial dynasties. In the samurai world that emerged under the Minamoto, Bushido, the code of conduct that governed the actions of the samurai, became a central feature of the warrior class's values. It emphasized honor, loyalty, self-discipline, and the importance of family, all of which were reflected in the Taira clan's fate. The Minamoto, having won the war, were cautious, aware that their own dominance could be just as fleeting as the Taira's. The war was not just about who ruled Japan but about understanding the fragility of power itself. The imperial family, although relegated to a ceremonial role, remained a part of Japan's cultural memory, as did the Taira clan's involvement in the imperial court. Japan's political future would now be shaped by the military rule of the shogunate. But the cultural significance of the imperial family and the Taira clan was far from gone. Even under the Kamakura shogunate, The imperial family retained its symbolic importance, and the echoes of the Taira clan's history influenced the cultural and moral values of samurai society. Final reflections. The legacy of the Taira and the Minamoto. As Japan moved into the Kamakura period and the Minamoto clan solidified its control over the country, the Taira clan's rise and fall continued to influence the course of the country. The Minamoto may have won the Genpei War, but they could never fully escape the shadow of the Taira's tragic downfall. The lessons learned from the Taira clan's ambition and Empress Kenrei's sacrifice were woven into the very fabric of samurai society, where the balance between ambition and honor, pride and humility, loyalty and sacrifice, remained as crucial as ever. The Taira clan's tragic fate left an indelible mark on Japan's history, not just in the form of political outcomes but in the moral and ethical lessons that shaped Japan's feudal system. The Minamoto, despite their victory, had inherited the Taira's lessons, carrying with them the knowledge that power could be fleeting, and that the family, honor, and loyalty that sustained them would ultimately define their legacy. As Japan entered the Kamakura period, a new chapter began, one shaped by military rule. But it was the legacy of the Taira, and particularly Empress Kenrei's sacrifice, that would continue to echo through the ages, reminding all who wielded power that no empire, no matter how mighty, could ever last forever.